Hurricane Delta, major Hurricane Delta, top winds 115 miles an hour, less than 400 miles south of Cameron, Louisiana, moving northwest at 12, and going to make another landfall in the great state of Louisiana, Southwest Louisiana. Those folks in Lake Charles getting hit with a major 2 months ago with Laura. Now they're going to may have to do it all over again here on what has been a rather amazing hurricane season in so many ways. Welcome everybody to the Joe and Joe Weather Show. Usually start at 7, but I had a couple of things to take care of, so we are on a 7:30 start tonight, which actually might work out well because there's a recon there now. There's another one on the way. We have an 8 o'clock advisory coming up, so we'll get it all updated. But the Hurricane Joe started revving up again today, and I just was looking at some of the recon with the flight level winds up over 120 knots, and the pressure's falling a few more millibars. So we'll see how much stronger it gets between now and landfall.
Well, Lake Charles, Louisiana is better known now across the United States. From the views that we have been seeing in advance of Delta, I think Lake Charles, Louisiana is now known as Blue Tarp City because they say that about at least 40% of the homes are covered or are using blue tarps as roofs as a result of what happened to them 6 weeks ago with Laura. And Lord only knows what's going to happen in the next 24 to 36 hours to those homes as Delta moves in with its winds. And I don't know what did Louisiana do to deserve this year, Joe? I can't. I don't
Every
understand.
year, as the pattern sets up, especially you see it more obviously in active seasons because you see more storms around, but there always seems to be one particular area that becomes the target, and they wind up with several hits along the way. So this year, for whatever reason, it was Louisiana, and we had our pair of tropical storms that moved up the East Coast, but the at least assuming that Delta weakens a little before landfall, which is what the Hurricane Center is forecasting, this will be just shy of a major when it does make that landfall. Let's hope so that that the shear kicks in and the cooler shelf waters up in the northern Gulf of Mexico take it down a couple of notches before it moves inland.
Hopefully that will happen. I just can't even imagine what it would be like to live down there and to perhaps have a home that has already suffered significant damage and you're holding on literally by a thread. And this is the last thing that you'd want to see happen. And I'm sure we're going to see a lot of it tomorrow, especially since this is one of the rare storms that we've seen so far this season that's actually coming during the light of day. Most of these systems have been hitting in the overnight hours, but it looks like we're going to be seeing landfall with this system sometime tomorrow afternoon or at the very latest early tomorrow evening.
All right, so let's get started with the recon. We're also, by the way, going to take a look at the long range, which was it's pretty interesting what's going to be happening over the next couple of weeks, but we'll get to that a little bit later. This is the plane that is there right now. It is 7:36 Eastern time, and we're seeing there was a fix at 22:05. So right now it's 23:36 Greenwich Mean Time, so roughly an hour and a half ago, and the red is the mean sea level pressure. The blue is the flight level wind, and the mean sea level pressure. Now I'm just kind of guesstimating here. That red looks like it's at least down to at 950 and maybe even a little bit lower. Now I know they carried 959 at the advisory. I don't know if they had this at the advisory time or not, but nonetheless, we are certainly seeing it. The pressure's been steadily falling all day for the central pressure. The flight level winds pushing up close to 110. I saw one earlier, by the way, not about an hour earlier than that, that was up at 120. And if we follow it along, you're going to see on the surface winds, the 10-meter wind, when it was going into that lowest pressure, the 10-meter wind was pushing just about to 95 knots. So that's 110 miles an hour right there. Now, the plane's going to be doing several passes, and this is how it looks graphically. So the white wind barbs that you see on the northeast side, that's 196 to 113 knots. And then there's this sort of light pinkish, the light pink barbs, Joe, 113 to 137. So somewhere east of the center is where you're seeing the strongest winds. And the two fixes so far, 959, and then the next fix, 957. So you had a 2 millibar fall there probably in about an hour's time. I'm freshening this up. Looks like so is Levi Cowan of Tropical Tidbits, because he only has only half the graphic is uploaded here. So we'll come back to that in just a little bit. So this deepening phase seems to be continuing, and the Hurricane Center indicated in their discussion that we're going to get down. It may strengthen for another 12 hours before it levels off. And the model tracks, Joe, are pretty much right on target for Southwest Louisiana. Maybe most of the models are barely east of Lake Charles. This is pretty much a repeat performance of Laura in terms of the track, and then of course moving inland and weakening.
Yeah, so it looks like it's going to be a deviation of only about 15 miles from the track that Laura took 6 weeks ago. And that's why you have to feel very bad for the people who live, for example, in Lake Charles. I mean, those folks are still recovering from Laura, and now they got to batten down and or try to batten down in advance of Delta. I saw one report a little while ago. Uh, they showed like piles of debris left over from Laura's visitation 6 weeks ago, and now the local officials there are saying that those piles they need to do something with them between now and the end of tomorrow, or else those piles become flying projectiles, and that's something you don't want to see. So it just boggles the mind. And I know you said that sometimes when you get into a certain pattern, this sometimes will happen. But I mean, I really feel for the people who live down
Oh, of
there. And,
course.
yeah, it's just a very sad. Now, after we finish with Delta, I mean, looking at the model runs all the way out for the next 10 or 15 days, it looks like unless you see something differently, I don't really see anything massive or major that's going to develop in the tropics.
No,
Uh,
there's a wave out there that the Hurricane Center mentions way out in the Atlantic that might do something when it gets a little bit closer to the Leeward Islands sometime next week. But at least, well, for sure, we should get a handful of days with a break. But
right.
everything, everything that wants to spin up spins up. So I wouldn't rule any, I wouldn't rule it out. But you're right, the models don't really show too much at the moment
It's kind of
in the
like
longer
the
term.
converse of this is like one of those winters that we have, where at the drop of a pin, you look out the window and oh my goodness, we've got another inch of snow out there.
Right.
Every little potential system that normally we wouldn't do much of anything. All of a sudden you get snow here, snow
Right.
there. Now this year it's just this summer in the tropical regions. It's just like you're right, and
Everything's spinning.
everything is happening. Yeah.
Right. Tropical, the watches and warnings up. There hasn't really been too much change. They adjusted the storm surge warning, taking it down for the parts of Mississippi, the Mississippi Gulf Coast where they had it up. But for the Louisiana coast, that's the area in purple, and of course that same area also under a hurricane warning. Hurricane warnings from Sabine Pass in just east of Sabine Pass in Texas to Morgan City, Louisiana. You've got tropical storm warnings that go well inland up through the state. So at this stage of the game now, it's just waiting for the 24 hours to go by to get this thing to do what it's going to do. Now, the intensity models. I'm going to give this recon thing one more refresh to see if. Oh, there it is. So now the same two fixes. The plane's coming down from the northeast and about to make a third fix. So we'll check back in on that a little bit later on, and we'll see what they find. All of the intensity models, Joe, are in the 3 to 4 range, and they keep it there. Now this is at 18Z, so by 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, a couple of them start to go under the 3, but most of them are in that 3 to 4 range, right through 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, and then after that they start to drop off. Obviously, you go into 30 hours, and now you're dealing with a landfall, and of course, you see how it rapidly weakens as it moves further and further inland. But it'll be interesting to see this. It seems like the pressures are dropping at about 1 to 2 millibars an hour. So, I mean, conceivably, if that continues through the overnight, this could get down to a 940 or maybe a high 930s on the absolute peak.
Right, right. And we're on central, excuse me, the hurricane advisories are timed out for central daylight time,
Right.
but we should be coming up now.
Yeah, at 8 o'clock, 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 Central, right here on NBC. Uh, radar. Just want to show you, folks. Obviously, the core of anything that's really involved with the hurricane is still not in range. You're just barely starting to see maybe that the northern part of the hurricane coming into radar range there, well offshore. But there's been a lot of shower activity, some bands that have swept inland that extend from the Florida Panhandle this evening and go back through a good chunk of Mississippi and northern Louisiana and in through East Texas, and then there's a renegade little band there that goes down almost to Corpus Christi. Excuse me. So there's been quite a bit of rain that's already gotten in there. The bulk of this, of course, is yet to pass. While I have this graphic up, just want to show you that except for what's going on there and for a few spotty showers in parts of central Florida, the radar is silent for the most part from coast to coast. It's just absolutely quiet. And I'm going to bring up the Hurricane Center's forecast here. And yeah.
By the way, when you show the storm surge forecast from the Hurricane Center,
yes.
What do you think of that? It's almost like you have to attest that you understand everything before they actually physically show you the map.
Well, I've got the map. Well, the actual map up here that they have. This is the experimental peak storm surge forecast graphic from the Hurricane Center, and they've got estimates of surge. Vermilion Bay at 7 to 11 feet is the hot spot there, and the further to the west, you have the Rockefeller Wildlife Refuge in Southwest Louisiana, 5 to 8 feet. Then you get over towards Sabine Pass on the western end of this. Now, of course, now you're on the Texas side, just about to the Texas side, and you're seeing they're kind of on the edge of the surge because the center should pass to the east of there, 4 to 7 feet, 2 to 4 feet in southeastern Louisiana from the mouth of the Mississippi on up to the Mississippi Gulf Coast, including Lake Pontchartrain, and that's 2 to 4 and 3 to 5 feet in southeast Louisiana is a lot because the vast majority of that area is below sea level.
Right, right.
So flooding there is kind of a regular thing. Once you get flood, the levels go up more than a couple of feet. Here's the Hurricane Center's official forecast. They're keeping it as a major through 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. So you're hoping that last 75 miles or so, the system weakens a little bit. Going inland, you see where the warnings are, and the tropical storm warnings are in blue, and the forecast track inland with the remnant low moving up into central Tennessee. And of course, we're going to talk about how the remnant rains from that will be impacting us maybe later in the weekend or on Monday. 24.8 and 94.3 was the 4 o'clock position. Top winds 115 miles an hour, and moving to the northwest at 12.
And Joe, the situation, yeah, we're hoping that there's a little bit of a diminishing of those winds, although with the passage of time, the width or breadth of the storm is just becoming larger and larger by each passing hour. I mean, a few days ago we were talking about how tightly compact this system was, but now, as you can see, I guess you just brought up the GOES 16 view. This thing is pretty well, you know, it encompasses a large part of the Gulf of Mexico, and when this thing moves inland, it's going to pretty well encompass all of the state of Louisiana. So
Yeah.
in
It,
one
it,
way, shape, or form, whether you're going to get, if you're in Louisiana, you can count on either hurricane force winds or at the very least tropical storm force winds when this thing comes on shore late tomorrow and tomorrow evening.
it has gotten quite large in terms of the overall circulation. And by the way, if you look back over toward Cuba, you see the rotation that's going on. That's an upper low. That's a cold upper low, and it's part of the equation here in terms of the outflow. Because you're the position of that upper low being southeast, uh, and of course we showed the other day that this thing is just basically under a huge upper high, which is a feature is a feature and a marker for a system that is going to be strong or intensifying. I'm noticing on the visible when it switches over to the IR, the eye seems to have filled a bit. Now, will be interesting to see if that's because there's also it does look like there's a burst of convection going on as well. So I'll be curious to see what more we get from the recon with regards to this. And of course, Joe, it stands out in the center of this picture because everywhere else the weather is relatively quiet. Also, by the way, I'm noticing that milky white out to the west in the Rockies and back in California. It looks like that might be more wildfire smoke that's pushing eastward.
No, it's quite possible. William Huber, we just answered your question. He on the chat board said, Joe R., what's that spinning south of Cuba? And as Joe just pointed out, it's kind of a cold upper low. It's nothing to do with any tropical or potential tropical activity. But as Joe just pointed out, playing a role in the future movement of Delta in the coming days ahead.
And looking in the Northeast, of course, with this chilly air mass that we have, and upstate New York is just, I'm astounded at the hammering of that they got with those thunderstorms yesterday into last night. That was just for this time of year, and given the setup, I would never have expected the kind of damage that has occurred there with those storms. It was just
Now,
phenomenal.
the interesting thing about that, Joe, is since you brought it up, I know I've seen all of the forecasts saying, "Oh, Saturday is going to be a gorgeous day. It's going to be a beautiful day outside. Get out there and enjoy." But you know what? If you, I don't know if you want to hold off on this until a little later. The Storm Prediction Center shows that maybe a very similar setup to what we just saw the other day in terms of the storminess might be replaying itself on Saturday in the afternoon hours with the next cold front
All
approaching.
right, well, let's bring you. You asked for it, you got it, Toyota. Let's take a look. So we'll jump to Friday on SPC, and of course, it should not be a shocker that you have a slight risk of severe weather being indicated for southeast Louisiana. Anybody east of the center of Delta is going to have a severe weather risk, and also the marginal risk that goes a bit further north. And going on to day 3, which is Saturday, yeah, they got a marginal risk again for almost virtually the same area in upstate New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and into western Maine.
Now, if you remember, initially they had a very, very tight. They had marginal risk for like the Adirondacks and northern New England, and a very small zone of general thunderstorm activity. Then they kind of enlarged that the following day, yesterday. What you're seeing right now predicted for Saturday, I'm wondering if what just happened has caused some of the forecasters to say, hey, this looks like a similar scenario. Why don't we just go whole hog? But if you notice, look where the general thunderstorm activity is.
Right.
It's practically at my doorstep
right. Yes.
Here in Putnam County. And I'm wondering whether or not maybe later tonight or tomorrow, if this holds true, that you might suddenly see the forecasts slip in a chance of a late day thunderstorm on Saturday, at least for parts of the Hudson Valley. And look, not too far away to the north, up toward, let's say, Hudson and Kingston and Albany, and there it is again, another
Yeah.
large area of marginal risk of severe weather.
Also, marginal risk for Saturday is going to shift up further up into Mississippi and Alabama, of course, as Delta continues to move along. We're sort of at the point now where there's not a whole lot more we can add with regards to how this is going to play out with respect to Louisiana. I'll bring the upper air up so we can see what's going on overall and figure out what is in play for Saturday. And I don't know, Joe. I mean, let's go back. Okay, let's go back to what happened on Wednesday. All right, here is the upper air on Wednesday, and it's so clear here. This strong shortwave was the culprit that swung through up through New York State and now the southern end of this. Actually, I was surprised also by the fact that the southern end of this was a little more active than I thought it would be with those showers that came through. But this was a pretty impressive little shortwave trough in the flow
Right.
that came down from the northwest. Now, there is going to be another shortwave that's going to come down on Friday. While this is all going on, you see Delta coming around the periphery of the upper high that is right in here, sitting off the Florida coast. It's not moving at all. So that is how Delta's getting steered. And of course, you've got all this westerly flow that runs across the U.S. from the Pacific to the Atlantic side, and it's pretty much waiting to get far enough north to get caught by that. There's a shortwave for Saturday. Now, this to me, I don't know, Joe. That doesn't look anywhere near as impressive as what we just had, and I'm just wondering, perhaps I'm on you. I'm with you on this. They're probably looking at this and saying, you know what, we better throw something up there, considering what just happened. I mean, they had the marginal risk. SBC did a good job with putting the marginal risk up a couple of days ahead of time, and they did drag it down. I guess my only question is that there was a point, and I'm not trying to second guess them or backcast them or hind forecasting. But I go back to that SBC discussion that came out in the middle of the day, where they talked about upstate New York and said that a severe thunderstorm watch was unlikely. So I'm thinking they might want to have that time back and make maybe a different decision considering what the outcome was. But
and on the chat board, Joe, Paul Roman says that what happened with the other system, the one we had just the other day, yesterday, was the worst thunderstorm of the season here in Ulster County, New York.
That's
a pretty, considering all that we've seen since last April in terms of severe weather. That's quite a statement.
It is. Just the fact that it's happening in October, and it's not like we had dew points flying up to the 60s or anything like that. It was the air wasn't particularly moist going in ahead of it, but it was all the energy with that upper trough, and you had just enough daytime heating, I guess, to an instability. The instability must have been off the wall to create the problem. And of course, what came out of this was a deepening low. And on the Canadian satellite, I haven't updated this. I'm going to do it in a moment, but I just want to show this was from last night and going into this morning. You see the comma shape system there. That's from New Brunswick to Newfoundland. It turned out that low deepened down to a 977 at one point early this morning. So we had a pretty the front and the wave that developed on that front. That wave developed into a powerhouse storm. And I'll update this now so we can take a look at what's happening. Of course, that storm has now moved further to the northeast. But if you watch the loop. First of all, that storm still remains very impressive, But if you watch the loop, you can pick out the next shortwave over Hudson Bay that's dropping southward. I mean, this is all part of that energy. And there's another little shortwave there moving through central Canada, north of Lake Winnipeg. So that's going to be what's moving through the east to bring a cold front through. It's going to bring it down to eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England during Saturday night. But I think by that time, there won't be much with it. And also, by the way, note out in the Pacific, we've got a pretty wrapped up system here in the Pacific and moisture coming into the Pacific Northwest. So some rain at least coming into the west to help with those wildfires that just don't seem to want to go away.
Yeah. Well, or they can use some moisture. And again, as I could see on the satellite picture, yeah, the north central part of the country looks a little bit lighter. I'm wondering whether or not that indeed is airborne smoke that's being blown across the nation's midsection from those fires out west.
All right, so let's now see how we can resolve all of this with regards to the rest of the weekend. And Saturday will, for now, of course, with what's going on, might happen further to the north, but areas further south, you go to Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Long Island, down into Maryland, Delaware, Virginia. By the time the front pushes far enough south, it's not going to really have much with it Saturday night because it's all going to come after dark. Meanwhile, the remnant of Delta is getting kicked to the northeast because you've got this big trough that's moving into the west. You see it here, moving into the west there in the northwest, and it moves fairly quickly into the western Great Lakes, and that should lift this up and bring some rain here Sunday night into Monday afternoon. And the other thing I noticed, Joe, because since we're going to have to wait now also for this western system to move eastward, there's going to be another front pushing eastward because of that. I wonder whether we're going to have some lingering showers hanging around on Tuesday, maybe even into Wednesday until that system clears.
Yeah, I think Joe that there's no way that you can slice this or dice this. It looks like Columbus Day Monday, not a very good day. I think onshore winds keeping temperatures mostly in the mid and maybe low 60s. A lot of clouds, wet weather, rain or shower activity. Hopefully they'll hold off until after dark on Sunday so that we'll be able to squeeze out a halfway decent day on Sunday. But Monday doesn't look all that good. And I agree with you. Tuesday, we may end up between the lingering moisture from the remnants of Delta and that next system approaching from the west. We might see more in the way of scattered showers Tuesday and maybe spilling over, dare I say, into perhaps early Wednesday as well.
Yes, sir. Now, I'm going to roll through the rest of this long range, but before I do that, I found teleconnections. Now that
Oh, you
well,
found where they were now.
well, they moved them around.
Yeah.
But I had to bring. I saw this. I said, you know what? I have to bring this up. Take a look at this. Now we're going into the middle part of October. All right. Start the NAO is in a negative state right now, and going into the longer range, Joe. And this is based on the. I'm trying to see which model run did they use here. I'm trying to see on the graphic if it even says here where it doesn't even say which model run this is. I'll just assume that it's the most recent one, the one from last night, the 0Z.
Okay.
But look at the NAO in red. The red is the forecast NAO going out past October the 5th, the October 16th. So the 17th up to about October 19th. It goes off some of the members go off the wall negative here.
Right.
Almost all of them are negative, but some of them really go off the wall negative. Now, that the North Atlantic Oscillation, for those of you who don't know, that means higher pressures up in the North Atlantic and lower pressures in the middle part of the Atlantic. So that is usually a cold signal for the east, particularly in the wintertime. It's a signal that snow lovers jump up and down for. But look at the PNA, the Pacific North America Index, which measures pressure patterns in the western part of the United States out to about Hawaii, but it also takes into account the area in the southeastern part of the U.S. as well, showing it going sharply positive in the middle part of the month. So you're going to have a negative NAO and a negative and a positive PNA, which
Right.
again in the wintertime, snow lovers would be jumping up and down over this. And the
We didn't see
arc
that. We didn't see that once this whole winter season.
Right. And the Arctic oscillation, which when it's negative, it means you've got higher pressures in the polar regions so that the polar vortex is basically displaced southward, such as it is in mid October. Look at the AO. It is off the wall, some of them even off the chart negative going into the middle of the month. Now, taking all of that into account, this is the North America view of the upper air going into mid-month. So we last left you with that that system for early next week. Delta plays through. You can barely find it in the upper air, but you've got this strong trough that moves through the plains. Over time, a large upper low forms and drops into the east by the time we get to the weekend of the 17th and 18th. Now, this is where the NAO is off the wall negative. Your PNA, just to show you, the Pacific North America Index, the positive Pacific PNA, strong upper ridge. Whoops, hang on. Strong upper ridge in the west, deep trough, low in the northeastern Aleutians / Gulf of Alaska with a deep trough at 160, which means you're going to have a trough somewhere and a very deep trough in the eastern part of the United States. And look at the flow. The upper flow comes from the Arctic regions straight down into the southeastern part of the United States. If that's January, we're frozen. Okay, it's mid-October. If this verifies, it's going to get very chilly around here for this time of year.
Ah, yes, all the leaves are going to drop all at once.
Yes, pretty much. And going forward, that trough sort of hangs around in the east, and then eventually part of it pulls out. But then you start to see, more energy that may or may not want to drop into the eastern part of the United States in the longer haul. But it's interesting to see it now because for snow lovers know deep in their hearts that come the middle of December the switch will be flipped and you'll go to a trough in the west and a ridge in the east, which means no snow and it's mild, but it's pretty dynamic to see something like this. And of course, you also point out about that negative Arctic oscillation, the higher the normal pressures. If you see where the upper low actually is in Hudson's Bay and near James Bay, and that's because you've got higher than normal pressures running around all throughout, much of northern Canada and in the Arctic. So that displaces everything south. Anytime you've got a trough at 160 down to Hawaii, you're going to have a trough somewhere in the eastern part of the United States and a ridge somewhere in the middle. That's just kind of how the spacing works. But the deeper the trough, the stronger the ridges are on either side. So again, kind of the middle of the month is going to prove rather interesting. So back over to the surface, as they say, and we'll roll this back. I'm going to use I'm not going to use the radar. I'm going to use the precip, the actual liquid precip totals, so we can see those thickness lines. And now, before we get there, here's Saturday. I think SPC is probably reacting to models generating, Joe. If you take a look, it does show some activity with the front here in upstate New York Saturday evening. Here's Delta way down here, so I guess they're doing the marginal risk thing. Rain and some snow in the higher elevations, of course, in the northwest, but it's the rain that we're looking at that's most important, and we're happy about to see it there. And Delta lifting northeastward, Your next high behind that front goes right away to northern Maine. So we got onshore flow here developing on Sunday. I think we're going to have a lot of clouds around here on Sunday, Joe, with the onshore flow setting up.
Could very well be. Could very well. In fact, even Saturday, I'm saying, I've seen forecasts mostly sunny and warm. And I think frankly on Saturday, how warm we're going to get is going to be dependent upon the cloud cover. And I think we're probably going to see high clouds, thin high clouds. But I'm always concerned when I see something like what we're looking at for this weekend, that some of those clouds will get a little bit out of hand, and we'll see more than just high clouds. We may see mid and high level clouds.
Yeah.
The sun will get dimmed, and instead of seeing temperatures, let's say of 75 to 80, we see temperatures more closer to 70. And P.S. I think this Saturday, for parts of the tri-state area, will be one of our last shots of seeing temperatures approach or maybe get to 80 degrees. It's been a long time. I mentioned yesterday, I think, or the day before.
Right.
Last time 80 at Central Park, September the 10th. And that's kind of unusual that we've gone from September the 10th till now and have not had any temperature at or above 80. We usually get at least a couple more after the 10th of September. But this Saturday, this could be it, folks. Take advantage of it, whatever we get, because it'll be a nice warm day. And considering what Joe has been showing you with the NAO, the bottom dropping out by around the 18th of October, and all the signals that the flow is going to be coming out of Canada, we may not see too many shots or chances more close to 80 again for maybe for a long time.
The GFS seems to the last couple of runs has kind of backed off a little bit on the volume of rain. It looks like it kind of weakens the tropical moisture, but then you've got the front coming in by early Tuesday morning. The front is in western PA, and that enhances the shower activity during the day on Tuesday. And then the front stalls for a little while right on the coast, so you still got some showers here into Wednesday if this is correct. And now here comes the next front, which generates some showers here along about Thursday night, Friday. And look at that that's cool air. That's chilly air there, Joe. They got 534, 28, 522-ish thicknesses of the northern lakes. Yes, that's light blue snow that you're seeing. And the 534 thickness, which is, basically that's a measure how cold the air is. The lower that number is, the colder the air is. And 540 is a line that we use for rain and snow when we get into the winter season. It's not going to work very well now, but when you see it in mid-November and beyond, then it has more value. But this is a pretty decent push of cool air that goes pretty far south, and I'm looking at this and I saw this. It's got a little bit of precip there with the 540 thickness for New Jersey and Long Island. Come next
Joe.
Monday, Tuesday.
Let's call for it, Joe.
Yeah, here. Take a look. Take a look how it develops this low that comes out of the northwest Caribbean and then pops up off the Florida coast and produces all this rain. And the 540 thickness is running, just north and west of. Actually, it's like at Cape May to central Long Island. I mean, that's just. I mean, you're not going to get anything out of that. It's just kind of funny seeing it on a map on October 21st. If that's even real. I mean, we know that this is going to change, but the point is that those, like you said, those signals are there, and it looks like, I guess, that what the Climate Prediction Center folks were talking about warm weather for mid-month on, going back at the beginning of this month in their ultra long range. Doesn't look like that's going to be happening here in the east. Right?
That's my commentary about that. This is it's all coming too early for me.
No, I know. I hear you.
By the way, thank you, Scott Briller. Thank you, Johnny Quest, for super chats tonight.
Oh, good. Scott Briller's on the board, so he must be feeling better. I'm coming back full screen now.
I want to tell you something about Scott Briller. I mean, for all that he has gone through, and yet he's on break from his COVID supplied job, back to work after 3 weeks off. I mean, Scott, you deserve a break, and Thanks very much for Joe on the super chats. He says, "Have Joe and Joe have a cigar and a candy cigarette."
And why not?
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I'm. By the way, I wanted to ask you something. The I have a cigar waiting for me after the show. Uh, but Mars in the sky. I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I don't pay close attention to it, but I'm down in Blue Ridge, Georgia right now, and I'm up 2,000 feet elevation, and there's not a lot of street lights up here, so it's great. You get to see a lot of stars in the sky. But there was a very yellow star up there last night, and I
That's you know
is go ahead.
the Mars is called the red planet, and everybody expects when you go outside and you look at it that you're going to see this red star-like object in the sky. It is not red. It is, but the ancients, I guess they needed a deity for the god of war, blood, red or whatever.
Right.
Mars is not red though. Mars is more of a topaz or a yellowish orange or pumpkin or kind of a fiery color. And the reason it looks that way is that Mars basically you're looking at a desert. Mars does not have the vegetation that we thought, 100 years ago. We looked at the canals and we thought that there was vegetation that came and went with this Martian seasons. No, Mars basically is a planet-wide desert. And what color is a desert? If you were looking at one of our deserts from high above, it would be kind of a yellowish orange color, and that's what you're seeing in the sky right now. Mars right now, Joe, about as close. Well, it can actually get about 4 million miles closer, but that's not going to happen for a long time. This is an exceptionally close approach, though, 38 million miles, and it is now ranking as the third brightest object in the nighttime sky next to
Yeah.
the moon, the planet Venus, and Mars. It's even brighter right now, Mars is, than Jupiter, which is
It
normally
it was
second only to Venus.
it was very bright last. Mars was very bright. It stood out, so obvious out there in the sky.
Like the
It was
proverbial
beautiful,
sore
actually.
thumb, like the proverbial sore. But now you see, it was closest to the Earth on October 6th. It's now beginning to move away, and you're gonna as quickly as it ramped up to its brilliance, its great brilliance now, within the next 6 weeks, it's going to ramp on down. In 6 weeks, it's still going to be relative to most of the stars in the sky, still a very bright object, but it's only going to be like a quarter or a half as bright then as it is right now. So catch it as catch it if you have not seen it yet. And even if you have a telescope, a small telescope, take a look at it now because Mars is a small planet. It's only twice as big as the moon. And usually when you look at it through a telescope, very disappointing. It's like a little dot.
Yeah.
But now even a small telescope with, going like 80 or 90 power, you'll be able to see it reasonably big and also maybe pick out some of the features on Mars as well. So it is something to look at and something to see. And again, it won't be this close again until the year 2035. Where are you going to be at 2035, Joe?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe at the 2035. So that's 15 years from now, and I'll be 77, almost 77,
Hmm.
76. I'll probably be going for the 2-for-1 breakfast in Florida, or or the early dinner special. Who knows? Here's
The early bird. The early
the
bird.
early bird. I have just another fresh recon here. I just want to show everybody. So it looks like now I'm eyeballing this because the way the scale is set, you've got 955 and 945. It looks like the red line is probably just under 950. And if you see the blue, which is your flight level wind, just up to almost to 125 knots. You've got double peaks of 95 knots on the 10-meter wind as the plane approached the center from one end and then came out the other. And on the graphical representation, they haven't plotted the pressure from oh, here it is. They just plotted it, 957. Okay, so there's I have to figure out why there are differences between what you see on the plot sometimes and what you see on the chart. Because on the chart it's definitely below 955. So on that, unless they do some sort of adjustment, some sort of mathematical correction for whatever reason. But you see the three plots, so you know the motion there looks still northwest, 959, 957, 957. And on the wind barbs, you've got those white wind barbs of 96 to 113, a lot of those, and then those pink ones of 113 to 137. And on the 8 o'clock Eastern Time advisory, which is 7 o'clock Central Time, we are at, they're carrying 25.3, 93.5, 310 miles south of Cameron, Louisiana, carrying 115-mile-an-hour winds, north-northwest now instead of northwest, north-northwest at, or 330 degrees at 12 miles an hour, same forward speed, 956 millibars, 28.32 inches, right?
Wow.
28.32 or 28.23. Nope, sorry, 28.23. My brain flipped those last two numbers. So
Pretty deep.
what's that?
I said pretty deep. I mean, that wouldn't show up on my aneroid barometer, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, that is definitely that's low. It's off the bottom.
Yes.
All right,
Yeah.
folks, we're gonna let's wrap it up here. Thanks very much for being here tonight. Scott Briller and Johnny Quest, thank you both for hitting super chat. Joe and I really appreciate it greatly. The tomorrow is kind of a travel day for me, so the I don't think we're going to do a show tomorrow night. So I think we're going to be we'll be back on Sunday morning.
Where are you going to be on Sunday morning then?
I'll be actually I'll be in I'm only going to be an hour and a half south of here. I'll be down closer to Atlanta, but I got a lot to do tomorrow. A busy day. I got some stops to make, and I'm thinking by tomorrow night I'm going to be wiped. So we'll skip tomorrow.
Well, you want to be wiped. I took a look at your images of you and your two grandkids running you
Yes.
ragged, but you had a big smile on your face. So I
Yeah, I
guess
got to see. I got to see my grandsons early. Actually, my mom came with me on this trip. She's 86.
so.
Well,
She's a
you
great
saw
grandma.
you knew she's been behind me on the live streams. But yeah, she's a great grandmother. But I dropped her. I took her down to my daughter's house, and this way she could be with the great grandkids for a while. And I'm taking care of some personal business up here, and I'm going to go back. I drove down there today, drove back up, and I'll be going back down tomorrow with taking all my stuff with me. So I got, like I said, I got my hands full tomorrow.
Okay.
All
Okay.
right.
So we'll see you first thing on Sunday
We'll see
morning at
su-
11 o'clock.
Sunday, 11 o'clock on the Joe and Joe Weather Show. Good night, everybody.